Hello, I'm Fezenclop and welcome back to my channel. My previous videos were about how to fix DC Comics. The idea came to me after I heard about what's been called the DC Comics bloodbath, where a lot of people lost their jobs due to low sales. I thought about how I would try to recover those sales, and so this video series was born. I covered changes I would make to the DC Comics universe, then I discussed how I would fix Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Batman. And now, here we are with the final entry, the Man of Steel himself. So let's get started with changes I would make to DC Comics characters, today starring Superman. Cue the theme from the 1978 movie, one of the best pieces of music ever written. Start as usual with the background. Simply put, if you don't know the story of Superman's history, you are really watching the wrong video. People who have never read a comic book, seen a movie, watched a TV, anywhere in the world, know who Superman is and know his backstory. That symbol is known worldwide and probably across the universe at this point. In a nutshell, sent to Earth from a dying planet, Krypton, Kal-El is the last of his race. Given superpowers for various reasons, by being on Earth, he uses these powers to help humanity as Superman. Originally, he became a reporter so he could be where the trouble is without drawing suspicion to himself. Being able to disappear for long periods of time, he's working on a story. Who knows where that led him? So, the being only member of his race, that's changed. Gone back and forth depending on the incarnation of the character. But he's always been Superman. Now, of course, DC Comics played around with it, and there are things that need to either be restored or things that just need to be fixed. And as always, it comes down to setting the universe solidly in place. No changing things around for someone else to come along and change it later to fit their story. Everything works within the framework. His powers, weaknesses, and backstory are, for the most part, known to readers. But the details would have to be, to use a now familiar term, carved in stone. And something else I had a thought about. Trying to fix DC this way would require sticking to it over the long haul. DC Comics had more success when they had the universe around them the same for a long time. You could build history. And while that would sometimes make it harder for people to join midstream, like joining a show like Babylon 5 or Buffy the Vampire Slayer halfway through the series run, you would have to find a way to connect back with that history, because that history built up and made things more involved and engaged, because what someone did today might reflect 10 years down the road. Everything had consequences. So no reboots every decade or so. You restart the universe and grow it over decades. Notice the plural, decades. Clark Kent is the man, Superman is the job. Your regular John Smith is different when he's not in his police uniform, and Clark Kent is different when he's not wearing the cape. This has been different in different versions of the character. In the Silver Age, Clark was the disguise. Then I think it was Crisis on Infinite Earths. Clark became the character and Superman the disguise. To me, it makes more sense this way. He grew up as Clark, so that would be who he is. Now, when I was growing up, even as a small kid, I wondered how the Kents were able to keep a superpowered child under control. I mean, that's the way it was originally. He had superpowers from the day he got to Earth, lifting a truck off the Kents or something like that. No matter how well behaved a child is, it's still a child. They make mistakes. They don't understand things the way adults do. They don't know that it's wrong to pull the wings off of flies or torture animals. And with that much power, Kal-El would be able to do whatever he wanted. And how would you punish him? You can't make him stay in his room. He can punch a hole in the wall. So Powers do not start appearing for the most part until he hits puberty, although he's tougher than a normal child. You know, the bull runs him over, he's fine. Which actually brings us in the next thing. Superman does not wear armor. That's not good. He doesn't wear armor. Back in ye olden days, his costume was made of Kryptonian cloth, unraveled from blankets he was wrapped in for his trip to Earth. Martha Kent then rewove the cloth into the material the costume was made from. Now, this was actually discovered, I think, in the original version of the character when, or maybe it was After Crisis on Infinite Earths. I'm not really sure, but in one of them, he does get run over by a bull. And it's the clothes that fit tight against his skin. They realize that it's protected. So they changed it at that point to his costume being protected by his bioelectric aura. We all have one, strangely enough. People who see auras, things like that, that's what they're looking at. Our nervous system gives off energy. Superman's is supercharged. This makes more sense that this aura would protect him than it makes more sense that way, because if you use an exotic material, it can be impossible to replace. And Superman gets in fights with things that are very, very powerful. Even things that are protected, like his costume, can get damaged. If you use an exotic material like Kryptonian cloth, Krypton isn't making cloth anymore. So his costume would eventually end up getting shredded. He'd be running around in a stainless steel cup or something. So it would be impossible to replace. Oh, and his costume has the red trunks. That's right, the classic look. On top of them being iconic, the outfit just doesn't look right without them. A belt doesn't break up the outfit enough. It just doesn't. Well, with the trunks, he looks powerful, like a circus strongman, or a professional wrestler, or, I don't know, maybe a boxer, but mostly a wrestler. They look powerful. They wear the trunks for a reason. After all, the problem, without the trunks, he looks like a dancer or an acrobat. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not how Superman looks. Superman is supposed to look powerful. He is supposed to look like the kind of guy who could take on Darkseid or Doomsday. He's that buff, powerful individual, and he has to look it. And compare these two side by side. One, he looks like a dancer. You expect him to go flitting across the stage doing pirouettes or something. The other, he looks like he's going to stand there, and if you try anything, he's just going to punch you in the next week. Superman needs to be more than just a brawler, but he needs to look like he can do it. And he just doesn't. And in this picture that should be up on the screen right now, you can tell there's just a difference in how he looks. Now, the red cape can be tattered after a fight or scorched from a fire. Fire retardant doesn't mean fireproof, but unless it's a really nasty fight, his costume is going to be mostly okay. But he's going to go through a lot of capes. Now, current comics have Superman's eyes flashing red when he gets angry. No, stop that. Superman is not some emotional mess who's going to fly off the handle. He's not Batman. He's not based on those emotions. His emotions are positive. The scowling look doesn't apply. He is, to quote YouTuber Professor Geek, an aspirational hero. He's the one we look up to, want to be more like. You know, there's a phrase, and I think I've got it on a graphic somewhere. If so, I'll put it up here. He is the guy you look at and what would Superman do? I had that up in my wallpaper for a long time. He's not driven by guilt or tragedy. According to Look Up in the Sky, a great video from that DC put out, he is DC Comics' fireman. He waits for the call. He deals with the problem. He goes out, he fights the fire. Whatever the problem is, he's there to help. And then he waits for the next call. It's who he is. It's who we need him to be. We don't need Batman in blue and red. We need Superman. Okay, and the Daily Planet, where Clark Kent works, would need an upgrade, because newspapers are failing, despite what they might lead you to believe. Perhaps it used to be just a paper, but has expanded to online news. Maybe even go so far as to having a cable or satellite channel or something on Roku. I don't know what they'd call it in that universe. Everything is a different name, probably mostly for copyright reasons, and so they could say it can do things that can't be done in the real world. But the Daily Planet would be more evolved. In the old times, back when I grew up, Sonny, the Daily Planet was owned by WGBS, I think was the name of the TV station, and Clark Kent was actually a news anchor. So they did that for several years. So maybe something like that. He could be out in the field filing reports, which goes up on the internet through the Daily Planet website. As far as also pertaining to Clark, people are always going on about the glasses. How can someone be fooled with glasses? But there's more to it than that. And actually, it was proven by Henry Cavill, who went downtown New York, I think it was New York, and put on the glasses. No one recognized him. You don't expect to see someone who doesn't wear glasses in glasses. You don't. But there's more to it even than that. In the comics, at one point, they made it so they did a story on this. And Clark was subconsciously using his glasses to cast a super hypnosis on everyone so they would see him as frailer, not as physically impressive. But more than that, that would be maybe iffy, I think. Especially now that Superman's powers are more limited. He can't just move a planet like he could back then. Now, a lot of the ability of getting away with this is because Superman doesn't wear a mask. No one really thinks he would be anything other than Superman. He doesn't wear a mask. Batman, there's someone underneath that mask. Superman, that's his face. So, that's him. That's Superman. He's always Superman. If he's not here saving the world, he's over there getting a cat out of a tree. Clark also studied acting and changes his posture and voice between the two. Clark's suits are fitted more loosely to make him look less muscular, less put together. Superman's uniform clearly shows off his physique. Or as Martha Kent, actress Catherine Callan from Lois and Clark said, they definitely won't be looking at your eyes. So it works because it works. If you watch Superman, the movie, with Christopher Reeves in the starring role, and you don't know, just watch clips of Superman and Clark Kent, and you don't watch the whole movie, you'll think they're two different people because they act so different. Superman is, I am Superman, I can do this. And Clark Kent's like, hi there, my name's Clark. I'd really think you're pretty. That's it. It's almost Woody Allen-like. Supergirl, Power Girl, Superboy, they would have to wait. It was 21 years after Superman's debut before they brought in Supergirl. And Power Girl was 38 years. I don't know when they brought in Superboy. I actually forgot to look that up. But The Adventures of a Child Kryptonian, as I said earlier, it doesn't make any sense. A kid's a kid. They're going to misbehave. You have no way to punish him. Now, it would take time to introduce these characters again. You would have some that would come in, Jimmy Olsen, Perry White, Lois Lane. Lana Lang would come in when you start talking about Smallville. And we're going to be talking about Smallville here in just a moment. But all these characters would have to wait. It would take time. And I think that's one of the things that they did wrong with the New 52 is they wanted to get everyone in all at once. Well, you already know about these characters, so we're just going to add them in. No, you're shoving them into something that's not growing fast enough. You got to let it grow. You got to let it settle. You can't expect a seedling of a tree you planted 2 months ago to be giving you apples. That's not the way it works. But they're expecting apples right after they put the seedling in the ground. When that doesn't work, they want to dig it up and stick another seedling in the ground. You got to let a tree grow. And they've not had enough patience to let that tree grow. But, we'd fix that. Now we come to the part expanding the world, which is something where we come up with a new idea or change something enough to where it really alters the premise, but hopefully not in a bad way. So we've got one here. We've got one here called Welcome to the Great Smallville Conspiracy. Clark Kent grew up in Smallville. There are a lot of people there who would know him too well for the glasses, acting, anything he tried to work. While growing up with friends of the Kents would help them hide any accidents when his powers began to develop. Like, for example, if he accidentally tore down a shed because he was running too fast and couldn't stop, the neighbors would get together, they'd put the shed back together, or they'd help buy for a new one. Guy who sells pre-manufactured sheds, he'd happen to find one somewhere to give them. And they'd do it because they'd see this kid is going to do great things. So when his powers began to develop, they would pull together to help, to protect him as much as they could. Now, when he moved away, say to go to college, the members of the group would step up to help the Kents in his absence, helping with the farming, maybe sewing costumes, things like that, especially the capes. However, some capes might accidentally be sent without the S on them, so you could have a little variety, or just use that as a cover in case the costume department screws up. Or, well, actually, that's a TV or movie thing. Just in case the shot is such where you can't see the S on the cape. Now, when Lois figures out that Clark is Superman, she comes to Smallville to investigate his background. She wants to learn more about him before writing this story. But instead, she's talked into dropping the story and becoming a part of the conspiracy. Miss Kent, he's saving the world. Isn't that a little more important than a news story? And why do people really need to know this? We need to help him. We need to do our part so he can save the world, so he can protect it. So, Lois helps cover Clark's tracks and disappearances, dropped clothes and glasses, fake phone calls and alibis. She becomes a key part of the conspiracy. During that trip, she met the Kents, and that's important. Because now she knows where he comes from, where he became the man he is. And she sees, he's not going to turn on us. He's one of us. He's a man who is super. It's just that man super doesn't sound as good as Superman. Okay. How much of this Clark knows is debatable. Perhaps he knows that there are people back in Smallville who knows who he is and are helping his folks, so he feels like he's more free to be Superman. Eventually he would find out about everything, but for a time maybe he'd chalk some of it up to luck. Oh, good, my jacket is still here where I left it. And isn't that interesting? It landed right on that hook. That's amazing. But maybe he catches Lois eventually gathering his discarded glasses or something. And so he comes to realize that she's part of this. Relationships. In the end, Clark and Lois are destined to be together. That's it. But just because they get there eventually doesn't mean it starts there. And this is another one of those cases where you have to stick with the universe. Lana Lang, Clark's old flame from Smallville, while they part ways romantically, they remain friends. And it could even be her who talks Lois into joining the conspiracy. Because I love him. I thought I loved him romantically. Turns out I don't. But, he's a great guy. He deserves to have a good life. And, just talks her into it. I wasn't good enough, and I know I'm not good enough to be there beside him as his life partner, his mate, his wife, whatever. I'm not that woman. Are you? And if you think you are, can you really turn on him like this? Or are you going to stand there and help him? And talks her into not doing it. And, hold on. And, Lana's doesn't even have to be the only girl in Smallville that Clark dated. And then his college years, simply put, people date. Most people, from geeks to jocks, they get to date some. I mean, even the geekiest person in the world is going to find another geeky person to get together with. Perhaps he even dates a girl whose first and last names don't start with the same letter. Wouldn't that be wild? And then he moves to Metropolis, meets Lois. They don't have to even like each other to begin with. Perhaps Lois is in a relationship when she first meets Clark. The two can date other people over time, become friends, working together. They become friendly, and then after a few years realize that they've stopped dating. I don't go out on dates much anymore, but the only time I ever go out is when I'm going out with Lois to work on a story. And they realize over time that they've found what they want. If you stick with the universe long enough, yes, they get married. Do they have a kid? Who knows? Yeah, you could have Superman date Wonder Woman for a time. Maybe for a while he dates Black Canary. Who knows? But, yeah, they could date for a while. Perhaps Wonder Woman can even introduce him to her daughter, which that's explained in another video, or to her mother, But they would eventually decide to remain friends. It could even be a running joke between them. One of them does something to irritate the other, and they're going, "Now behave, or I'll take you on a date." "Oh no, anything but that," and they both break into chuckles, leaving the other people standing there going, "What just happened?" Anyway, I'm going to end it right there. Superman is a character that pretty well everyone has an opinion about. And I hope you'll share yours with me in the comments below. And while I definitely could go farther and just could go on all day, I could go on at least for a half hour or a lot more. I'm going to stop it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit the like button below and feel free to do the other YouTube things. Comments are welcome. I'm also on BitChute. Look for me over there at Fezenclop. And if you have a better idea, I really would love to hear it. I'm Fezenclop. Remember, this is all in fun, and your mileage may vary.